Well, let's end the show on I would say a more positive, but definitely somber note, right? Wanted to make sure we shouted out
Absolutely.
Jerry West, who was announced today that he passed away. As Devon mentions, not just the logo, an incredible player, and not just an incredible player, but an amazing executive. There was certainly some friction between him and the Lakers late in his life after some back and forth sniping after he left there. He was with the Clippers. Also, after leaving the Lakers, had that successful mini run with the Grizzlies, was part of building them up after they were in the wilderness for a bit. Moving from Vancouver to Memphis, they had never really had an established team. And so Jerry West was part of kind of getting them off the ground. One of the great scouts in probably the history of the NBA, right? Gold medalist, was a constant fixture in the NBA finals way back in the day. Everybody who watched him play was like, he's the best guard or shooting guard, at least, of that era. Talking about a guy who was top 5 in MVP voting like 5 consecutive years and made that short list, I think like 8 or 9 times, where he's one of the 3 to 5 best players in the league. So obviously tremendous respect for everything he contributed to the game as a player, as an executive, just as somebody who was, like one of the legends of the game. Was not on a team I ever got to watch, but he was as good as it gets for basically the entirety of his life, and was so valued as a basketball resource that, even into his mid 80s, when a lot of these guys are taking a step back, enjoying their retirement, he's still advising the Clippers. And part of that process, I believe I had heard around when they drafted Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that he was in on him, that was one of his guys. And so, if you can get Shai and Kobe and all these other guys, that they're people that you went to the table for, on top of being a Hall of Fame player, I think that says basically everything about who Jerry West was. Someone just dedicated to the game for all his life.
To your point, dedicated to the game. I'm pretty sure he was at Summer League last year, because I was talking to someone who's trying to get an interview with him doing a book. 85 and at Summer League. And let me tell you, I'm much less than 85. It is tough to be in Vegas at that time of year for a number of days. He was as committed to the game as anyone ever has been. To your point, the legacy he left. And look, he hasn't played, 50 years ago?
Last season was 73, 74.
Yeah, and he's been making an imprint ever since in a way that almost nobody ever has.
So it's like when you point out we haven't seen him play, but we saw him play and toy with these other teams, with how he was putting together these rosters and drafting Kobe Bryant, identifying that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander later on, and the Grizzlies for what he did. I mean, for a while, even with Hubie Brown, we were like, what are they doing? Why are you going out and getting Hubie Brown, and why are you getting Jerry West? Well, then we saw why. We saw exactly why, to help put those teams together. And of course, where the conversation would become, should they change the logo? The logo is perfect, and it's Jerry West's silhouette. You just leave it be for what it is.
Yeah, there's no reason
to change it, no matter who it is. So yeah, I was surprised when I saw the news come down, but a lot of really good things to talk about when it comes to Jerry West for what he has done.
And we were watching an old clip of him prior to the show, where he's talking about, how the league has changed and how people talk about players and their makeup. And the quote was essentially, people talk about that dog mentality. He goes, I was a wolf. I used to eat dogs. And I was like, man, that's one of the best fucking quotes I've ever heard in my life.
Jerry West quote.
That shows you who he was. And certainly it was pointed out in the chat that we didn't even mention he won a finals MVP in a series that he lost, which
I think it's the only one to ever do that, if I remember correctly.
The only one I know off the top of my head, I believe.
And the only other one really discussed was the LeBron against Golden State, where Iguodala won.
It has happened in other sports. I know I believe it's happened in hockey a bunch of times, not in a long time, but that's also a playoff MVP rather than a finals MVP. So it's a little different. So yeah, shout out to the legend. Jerry West left a permanent impact on the sport. Everywhere he went.
For decades. And when you also look at quickly the executive side of things, for the ones that really stand out, knowing people in Los Angeles like we do, It always comes back to me because we're here and the Tobias Harris, not the stump on the Tobias Harris thing, but he was the executive that said 4 years, 80 or nothing else. That was one of those things. And then even now, hearing it now as a consultant, as you said, for the Clippers still in that organization, he's also one that, as much as he likes Paul George, at least the whisper was, don't pay him the same as Kawhi Leonard as that number. So, yeah, great executive, great player, and gone at 86. Great career in professional sports. No question about it.
We all silly like the mayor.